Hey everyone, it's time for Deploy on Friday for Friday, March 31st, 2023. How are you, Jim?
Yeah, really good. How are you, John?
Good, good. Very busy. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about this week, so we might as well get into it. This is a blog post that Robert Erez wrote. It's entitled Using Variables for Kubernetes Without Breaking YAML. And this is highlighting a feature that we have in Octopus for those who aren't aware or weren't aware that it was a feature in Octopus. That is, when you construct a workflow or rather a configuration for Kubernetes in YAML, oftentimes historically what you would do is you would replace certain parts and pieces of that YAML document with octostash variables. So it's that sort of double mustache notation for saying this is going to be a location for something during a deployment. And so you could create these deployment processes and then delegate areas where you wanted some replacement. Totally common scenario for different deployment environments, etc. Well, what we have support for is the ability to replace those same arguments using basically a delimiter notation. So by specifying or grabbing onto the notation itself, which is for the delimiter, which is a colon, you can do the same thing now. You don't have to use the mustache notation. We also support this for JSON documents as well. And so if you apply your variables in line, as the specified here, it will actually apply in that manner. So for those folks who weren't aware, this was something that we introduced, I believe, in 2020.1 or .3, somewhere around there, where basically you no longer have to use the octostash template notation. You can just simply denote using the colon reference. So that was an article that Robert wrote and published this week, and I thought worth mentioning.
Was it breaking the white space significance in YAML or something like that? Was it?
Well, the problem is that if you took these documents, right, these YAML documents, and you tried to, if you polluted them essentially with
Of course, it
octostash,
wouldn't be valid YAML. Yeah,
correct? Yeah, so
yeah, of
you
course.
couldn't run them outside, and so rather than telling people, hey, go pollute your YAML documents with all these things that don't make sense outside of Octopus, we'll just key off of the fact that you can walk the tree essentially using that
Yeah,
notation. And so it's a cleaner solution. So you don't have to touch your YAML documents with all these things. We can just inline replace.
Rob's a clever guy.
Yeah, so there are some limitations. Obviously, your naming convention that you have to walk, it's kind of like an XPath notation or something. Like you have to make sure you traverse the nodes correctly. And then there are some limitations, obviously. So things like large structural replacements of sections of code aren't supported. So if it's typically on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah, yeah.
So just be aware of that. There are some other limitations as well, but it's something that's available there. And I believe this has been around for a while, so make sure you take advantage of it. So good things worth mentioning. Moving on to the news, this is a series of articles that I caught that I thought were really interesting. So internally, we had a bit of a laugh. There was a meme that went around, let's say, that discussed the merits of different chat applications, and Teams was mentioned. And the reason why I bring this up is because the development team for Teams, has shipped an update recently that talks about how they've basically rebuilt the app from scratch, and they've reimagined, if you will. That's the classic sort of application term used to describe these things. But they reimagined basically the way that they could build these things out, and they saw a whole host of improvements, like everything from deployment times to overall performance, etc. So yeah, so it's really quite surprising that they were able to accomplish a lot of these things. But the reason why I mention this is because it was in a series of blog posts that I saw about the new architecture that they're going with, and I thought this was very mentioned. So the old version utilized a web front end with Angular, and then was hosted within Electron. The new one is using a combination of Fluent, React, and some data layer, and they're using WebView 2. And so it's a similar architecture that is uh, a hybrid application, but they're utilizing some new aspects for it. Fluent is the name for its Office flavored UI. So the Fluent
That was
UI
going to be my
collection of
next
controls.
question. Yeah,
Yeah. So Fluent UI is a collection of controls from Microsoft, and they are available for use if you wish. Fluent is I think it's called the design language for Office applications, if I remember
yeah,
correctly.
makes
And
sense.
so these are the React components that they have. So they have a variety of components that you can use. if you want to use an avatar component, I think the accordion or something like that is always a canonical one. So these are the building blocks that you would use in a context of an application. And so they've abstracted out of the way, created a design language, and that's what they use. They also use React as part of that. And then they talk a little bit about in this blog post some of the things that they did, some of the benefits that they saw out of utilizing WebView 2. So things like reduced memory usage, lower disk footprint, etc. The fact that a lot of these are optimized as well, and they also got to enhance the overall experience. So better security, the ability to move polling into push notifications, streamline installation through MSIX, etc. Things like that. So lots of really good improvements there. I would encourage anyone who's curious at all to look at who's evaluating their hybrid strategy relative to app development to take a look at these series of blog posts that have been written and published, because they do go through all the sort of criteria that you would commonly come across, like what sort of JSON, what sort of JavaScript UI controller are we going to use? What's our underlying plumbing going to look like? How are we going to send messages from our application to and from, etc. So this is the architecture that they went with. So you install using the MSIX, you got an app updater process as well. Obviously, the way that this works in a hybrid model is that you'll have Edge, typically in the hosting context, if you're on Windows, and then they have a rendering process that runs, and that's where you have a basic window loop here that's basically receiving messages, and then through message passing, we'll conduct messages between the service worker or web worker for doing any types of access to a database, etc. And then rendering is done within the window that is available there for you to use. And that's where they're leveraging Fluent UI, React, etc. So if you're looking for a way to construct a hybrid application and you're looking for a good use case that describes how to do this in a highly performant manner, these series of articles that I've highlighted here, which I'll include in the show notes, will provide that basis. So I think
Looks
this
like
is
a great read.
thing. Yeah, definitely. So I love, I have to give credit where credit is due. The folks at Microsoft really do a good job of providing sort of the high level construct. Apple does this very well as well. The sort of UI constructs that are, this is the reason why you upgrade is kind of what they're saying. This is the sort of capabilities they're offering. And to be honest, I mean, Teams is really battling it out for the chat space. They're giving Salesforce and Slack a run for its money, along with Mattermost and Discord, etc. I don't think Discord is going to get replaced anytime soon by the streamer community. But if you're in the Microsoft ecosystem and you're looking for something that works well with, identity, with Active Directory, etc., Teams is definitely a good choice, I think. So that's Microsoft Teams rebuilt from the ground up, promises 2x faster performance. So I thought that was kind of cool. I always like those feel-good type stories. Those are always fun.
Totally.
Speaking of feel-good type stories, KUI, this is from the folks over at kubetools. KUI has been built to basically evolve the status around kube control or kubectl, depending upon who you talk to. People have different notations for this. So KUI is basically an evolution of that model where they put a graphical interface on top of it. So this is what KUI looks like in the context of a run. So you can see on the left, we've got, this is what you would typically run, like get pods against kube control. And this will give you the list of your pods. And then on the right side, you will list individual commands that you've run. It's very reminiscent of what you might see at like Jupyter Notebooks or something like that, where you see previous runs and you can see the variations of the output if you wish. So I can see the summary or the logs or the YAML, etc. And so this KUI is definitely something that might bear notice if you're looking to use it in the context of your Kubernetes management. So here you can see we're utilizing Nginx within a pod. And you can see this is giving me a graphical representation of those pods that are available. And then if I want, I can take a look at what my config map looks like. I can see, usage around kubectl. Here I'm seeing my utilization, et cetera, et cetera. So there's lots and lots of stuff that's worth checking out there, which is awesome. So this is from the folks over at Kube Controls. KUI is the tool. And I think this is really, really cool. You can download it via Homebrew. So they have a tap available that you can download and install. They also have the binary available for Windows and Linux. And if you want, you can clone the repo from GitHub and build it yourself if you wish. They also have an image that you can use. So you can use this within the context of Docker, those folks using Docker. And if you're looking for a tool to help you manage your Kubernetes resources, give KUI a look.
So it's CLI commands, but then they're taking the output and using them as a graphical interface somehow.
Yeah, you're not going to replace kubectl or kube control
Yeah.
because it's the tool to use if you're doing anything around Kubernetes. It gives you all the functionality, but the problem with kubectl is obviously with any CLI tool, sometimes there's some niceties on top that you would like to have. Now, obviously, you can get a lot of this data in a number of different ways. It has export capabilities, but rolling this into a UI that for those folks who may not have the command line experience chops around Kubernetes, this will certainly help. The folks over at JetBrains continue their mighty ways. They are kicking goals, as we like to say here in Australia. And this is a blog post that highlights what's coming in Q1-Q2 2023 relative to TeamCity. So TeamCity has evolved leaps and bounds over the past few Qs. And in this release, they are finally introducing their new UI called Sakura. Every time I see this, I think of Shakira. So hips don't lie, etc. I don't know why this got planted in my brain, but I started looking at this like way back when, and I kept calling it Shakira. I don't know why, and it just stuck.
Does the song
So
start
I'm
playing
doomed.
in your head and everything?
I know, I'm doomed. So anyways, Sakura is the new UI framework for TeamCity. And TeamCity, for those who don't know, is based on Java. And so when we built our integration for TeamCity, which is by the number one integration for TeamCity, by the way, we had to use JSPs. And so it wasn't a really nice development experience. So Sakura is the evolution of that model, utilizing more front-end technologies, and provides some niceties along the way. So this one is based, I think, in Kotlin underneath the covers, and then you can use front-end client-side resources on the front for transitions and all that sort of great stuff, which is great. So that's one of the major sort of announcements associated with this roadmap that they're going to continue to evolve it. TeamCity Cloud is their SaaS version of TeamCity, and they're going to evolve that too with some niceties along the way. So cloud integrations with TeamCity proper. There's a bunch of other integrations here that are worth mentioning. Obviously, we don't have time to mention them all, but the UI itself is getting a big facelift, so that's great. They're slowly piecemeal replacing the older parts with the newer parts. So Shakira UI or Sakura is the new UI that is going to basically start taking place there. So this was something that we highlighted in our earlier edition of Deploy on Friday, this notion of what are called TeamCity pipelines. It's a graphical version of what's executing within your build pipelines with TeamCity. And so this is a very nice way of representing these things. This is now integrated within TeamCity. They mentioned TeamCity for game development, integrations with runners, GitHub app connections support. So TeamCity is looking to offer GitHub support through the possibility of authorizing TeamCity to work with GitHub as a GitHub app. So lots of stuff there. Simplifying the user experience, DSL work, etc., etc. So lots and lots of stuff coming in the roadmap. So for those folks who are utilizing TeamCity, good news. Some goodness is coming down the pipe. Did you hear about this?
I did not.
Did you hear about what happened with NuGet?
No.
Yeah, so this was their left pad moment, I guess. There was a few packages that got hit. Well, not hit, but there were a few packages that were discovered that were doing some not so nice things in NuGet. And so the impact or the blast radius for this, according to this blog post, was over 150,000 .NET developers hit by harmful NuGet packages. So a group of threat actors is targeting .NET developers with malicious NuGet packages. The malicious software superfluously pilfers cryptocurrency from unsuspecting users by a variety of techniques. Firstly, it hijacks the crypto wallets by tapping into Discord webhooks. Next, it extracts and runs malicious code from Electron archives and then operates undetected. And then finally, it maintains effectiveness by continually updating itself. So some of the packages that were discovered in NuGet include these ones. Now, you might notice that some of these look oddly familiar named. So you can see here, like these are similar packages, like they're trying to impersonate different packages here.
Ah,
So yeah, so it's so not so nice things happening in this space, but this is something that that has been discovered, and if you're a user of one of these packages, be aware that this is something that has been discovered. So Coinbase is obviously, I believe it's a crypto exchange, I believe, and so
yep.
yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So
right.
just be aware that these are there. This has been written up on Dev 2, and you can check out the detailed description there. It's
I
unfortunate when
guess
these things
100.
happen,
Yeah.
so
I guess 150,000 is actually not a lot compared to like the left pad moment, or wasn't it? I
yeah.
remember that
I don't
being
know how
much,
many
much
people got
bigger.
infected. I would
Yeah.
imagine it was quite a bit more.
Yeah.
I mistakenly on a podcast earlier today referred to it as Lodash, but I was starting with L. I had the first one
Yeah, yeah.
that came to mind was Lodash. I'm like, no, it's not Lodash. It's left pad. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But I think NPM's
be
got
aware.
like a really good general solution for people trying to impersonate packages now. So sounds like a time to get on board with that in the Microsoft
Yep.
sphere.
Yep. This dovetails nicely into the next topic. Microsoft Security Copilot. Everyone's getting a Copilot there, Jim. So
I'm gonna get confused.
everyone donned their leather pilot hats and goggles. We're all getting Copilots. So Microsoft announced Copilot for Office 365 a few days ago. They've just recently announced this, which is Security Copilot. Essentially, it's a prompt for analyzing security aspects of your infrastructure. So it's not a scanner, but it's a prompt that will allow you to do interesting things. So if an incident occurs, you can ask for analyzing things like logs or various things that are associated with that. It will gen for you various things that you need to know about. So threat hunting, this is an example. Let me see if I can't make this any bigger, but for threat hunting, it will alert you of various issues that may occur on various parts of your infrastructure. This one I liked is like, using the prompt, you can gen a variety of outputs like, hey, create for me a PowerPoint that highlights the threat model associated with this, or I need to, outline an incident. So basically anything you need to do around prompting for security is what's now available there. So just showing the video here briefly. There's a demo that they show. So we have a prompt here that will allow you to ask a variety of questions, and it will know based on the inputs, kind of helping. So here's an example where they give you a log file in JSON about any malicious activity occurring in that log file, and then it will analyze it and then give you a rundown of anything that could potentially be worth noting. And one thing that I liked here, which I think we could have used because it was something that hit everyone across the industry, is Log4j. So Log4j is something that occurred about a year and a half ago. I remember because we had to patch a couple of our systems as well. And incidentally, we patched them incredibly fast. I think we were right on top of it. We wrote up an incident report, etc. But having something like this to help me do my job more effectively on the security side of things, I think can be nothing but a good thing. So this is just something that kind of highlights what the prompt can do. So another example of where GPT and co-piloting, I guess, are coming to bear.
So these co-pilots, they're all coming from the same company though, right? Like the naming could be a little more coordinated, I think. Maybe it's deliberate.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. I mean, it
Yeah.
makes sense. Copilot is there to not necessarily fly the plane, but certainly to be there for a backup. And so I think that's a
Mm.
good thing. So for those, we covered Copilot X on the GitHub side last week. We've got Copilot for our Office 365, Copilot for security, Copilot for you name it now, I guess.
Mm.
So they're really taking on board the AI aspects of GPT and these large language models that we have available to us now. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see
Yeah.
where things where they go from here.
Did I
And
see also as part of using that you upload logs of your security incident to Microsoft?
this is running local, so
It's running
nothing gets
local?
uploaded.
Cool.
and it's
Yeah,
a prompt
nice.
that's I believe that's how it works. I'm not
Yeah, yeah.
really well versed into this, but it will integrate with various products that you have in your infrastructure. So it
That you've
assumes
got,
like
yeah.
correct. It assumes you're probably running Sentinel or Defender or
Yeah,
Intune.
right.
These are products from the security business unit of Microsoft. And if you are, then you can integrate with a local prompt to help you diagnose and manage those things that occur when using
Yeah.
those products. So anything dealing
That
with
makes more
incidents,
sense.
threats, and reporting. So
Nice.
definitely worth checking out. Very neat. All the co-pilots. Now, I thought it was interesting to mention this, especially in the context of what's happening online. So, what's happening online right now is a lot of people are starting to get antsy about everything that's happening around AI and these LLMs. And so, this is an open letter that was written. This was sponsored by Elon Musk and a number of other folks in the AI ecosystem, uh, people working on systems, etc. That we need to basically take a pause and take a breath and discuss what are the big impacts that may occur as a result of all this work. I think people feel like we're going way too fast and that we have the keys to our dad's Ferrari and we floored the accelerator, and who knows what we're going to be landing or crashing into down the road. So this is an open letter written by those folks and signed by a number of members of that community to basically put a giant pause on all of these experiments. What are your thoughts about this, Jim?
It's hard to know. I mean, is it just autocorrect or is it more? Is it just, I mean, I've seen a lot of evidence that makes me think it's just predict. I mean, it's just language model, right? It's just predicting what the next word's going to be. Essentially, it's not really doing logical reasoning or anything like that. I think there's some merit maybe to thinking about how parts of society might react to it, though, whether it's reasoning or not, and particularly maybe because it's not really reasoning.
Yeah. There was a report, I believe, that said, I think it was written by Goldman Sachs, that talks about the impact of AI,
Yeah,
and that there was, I believe, I'm just pulling this article up here. I don't know how truthful or how accurate this is, but tech firms hold all the power right now as Goldman Sachs predicts AI will impact 300 million jobs. So I believe that
yeah,
they stated that around 25% of the current workforce could be substituted by AI, while two-thirds could see some degree of automation to their jobs. So I think that's part of the reasoning behind the open letter.
yeah. That's right. And also, yeah, there was this article I read by some people that were asked to red team GPT-4, and sort of basically they got access to it behind the chat interface that's got some of the safeguards on it and tried to make it do malicious things. And they were able to, mitigate a lot of those malicious things, but they also sort of, as part of their analysis, came up with, okay, we can try and make AI a bit safer, but we probably actually really more need to think about making society safer to operate within AI, like knowing when something's produced by AI and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, certainly seeing a lot of the work that's being done via Midjourney, etc. It certainly is interesting to see kind of like what impact this will have from a creative perspective. So here's the
Mm.
article that you mentioned about red teaming the AI. Subscribe.
I think I
I
actually
can't.
read this.
I'm
Sorry, I gave you a
stuck.
bad link.
Where's the
I think
AI for
I
getting rid of this thing? I
let's
need
not
to run this
let's
without
not use
JavaScript.
that. Yeah,
Yes.
I here's the Twitter feed from the guy who actually did it, and that's what I actually read the first time. I just quickly googled it then,
Yeah.
but he
Fair
makes
enough.
some interesting points about
Yep.
what we might want to do and think about.
I was part of the red team for GPT-4, tasked with
Yeah,
getting GPT-4 to do harmful things, but I'm also increasingly concerned that it is far from sufficient. Interesting.
it's a bit of a thread.
Yes. Interesting. Hmm. Well, I will not pretend to know enough about this. the only thing I said, the only thing I'll say is that it seems to me like we've let the genie out of the bottle, and now we're trying to cram it back in, and I don't know if we're going to be able to do so.
Yeah,
This is a
I don't think
Pandora's
we'll be.
box.
No, I
Yeah.
can't see how I can't see market forces letting us put this thing back in the box. But yeah, whether it's actually whether it's a real genie or not, I think, or whether it's a really great parlor trick, sort of, I think the 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 jury's still out for me. But even if it's a parlor trick, it might be a dangerous parlor trick, I suppose.
This is an update from the folks over at Buildkite. Buildkite is from Australia, which is awesome. And they updated their bits to, they shipped their March 2023 release, and they've added a whole bunch of new capabilities, which I thought were interesting to reference. They got a really nice sort of marketing campaign around this that I liked a lot. And they added support for Kubernetes. They added better support for sort of flaky tests, etc. So you can now run your agents within a Kubernetes cluster. They added OIDC support, which is awesome. You can see an example here, flaky test tracker. So if you they started moving into the world of testing, etc. And so these and other capabilities they've added for their March 2023 release. And everyone's getting really good with their marketing. Like, I'm really impressed with how sleek it looks, And so yeah, this is the article here that highlights what's new. SOC 2 compliance, audit logs to Event Bridge, various other things. Your build and test processes evaluated. I like Buildkite a lot. I think it's really, really good, and I think it's highly performant. And it certainly is an evolution of where a classic CI system, how it operates. What I mean by that is Buildkite's very much about having control over your agents. So one of the things that they often tout within the Buildkite messaging is that your agents never leave your firewall. They run within your infrastructure. So that means your code never leaves your infrastructure. So the coordination of agents is done by their SaaS offering. But the builds themselves, you provision the runners yourself and run within your infra. And then that way you're guaranteed that no code is getting inadvertently out there, which is a concern, right? Because you have to take a snapshot of your code and build it somewhere, basically. And if you're running public agents or publicly accessible agents and they don't do the right thing about cleaning up after a build, it is potentially a case where your source code could get leaked. So
Yeah, 100%.
that's something they talk about a great deal.
And then maintaining a local build server sometimes is not a trivial feat when you've got lots of builds going on as well, right? So yeah,
Yes.
there's yeah, cool.
Yeah, you can see they got a number of wicked folks running Buildkite. This is what it looks like when you sign in. Actually, I've played around quite a bit with Buildkite. We actually wrote a few integrations with Buildkite, so you can actually do Octopus-based deployments with our plugins. We have 4 plugins for Buildkite with Octopus. So the idea is you configure your CI, and then it will execute runs, and it will do so via the agents. I believe it's based on Go, so it runs really quick and super multi-plat, etc., etc. So, congrats to the Buildkite crew. We're fans. I'm also a fan of HashiCorp. So I'm going from one fan. I'm just got my pom poms out now, going from one technology to the next that I
Fanboy
like.
John.
Yeah, I know. I'm like just a shill for these. So they just passed 3,000 providers. 3,000
Wow.
providers in their Terraform registry, which is awesome. So a Terraform provider is basically an integration with Terraform that knows how to integrate with or natively talk to a backend solution. So we built one as well. So we have the Terraform provider for Octopus Deploy, and they've just crossed 3,000 on their marketplace, which is fantastic. And so they call them integrations because there's other things as well. So on the registry, you can find a whole bunch of other things. So the registry includes things like not only the providers themselves, but modules, which are sort of like configurations that you can use. Policy libraries, which is based on things that you want to validate, Sentinel policies you want to validate on endpoints as well. And then the final one, which is run tasks, which are basically third-party tools and services to execute and manage the way that those things operate. So yeah, so they've just crossed 3,000 providers up on their registry, which is fantastic. So congrats to HashiCorp. There's lots going on there. And HCL being the number one or fastest growing language in GitHub, it shows that a lot of people are doing infra as code. This is an extension for VS Code. This was historically one that I was using. It was basically a community extension, but now they're officially announcing it as a GitHub Actions extension. So this extension that you use called GitHub Actions, when you install it, what it allows you to do is basically manage your workflow runs, get their statuses, see their logs, etc. So these are the runs you may have in your repo, well, back on GitHub running, and it
Mm,
surfaces those workflows running remotely and will surface them out. In addition to that, it also provides an LSP for YAML so that you can get IntelliSense for
nice.
authoring your workflows, which is always a pain in the butt because you never remember what the event name is, or if I want to get IntelliSense around action types, etc. So that's something that's there. So they have syntax highlighting for workflows and expressions, integrated documentation, and validation and code completion for YAML schema and GitHub Actions expressions. So lots and lots of good stuff there. This is the extension that they now have available. As I said, historically, it was available as, I think, a community extension, or it was just an open source extension, and I have it installed. But now it's official. So there you go.
Nice one.
That's the GitHub Actions VS Code extension. Wrapping things up, another thing that happened on the GitHub side is self-service BOMs, or software bill of materials. So a BOM, SBOM rather, is a listing of all the dependencies that go into building your software. And this is really important in the context of compliance. So in the first paragraph, they say there's the new White House Executive Order 14028, and it's talking about how SBOMs are necessary as part of being compliant on a federal level for open source components and projects. And so what they've done is they've announced a new ability to export SBOMs directly within GitHub. So if you come down here, you can see in the change log, in the change, what happened here, you can see there's now this export SBOM button in the dependency graph. So previously you'd see this big list of dependencies and it was like, yeah, whatever, like, no one cares. I'm assuming it is. But now you can export that SBOM, and the SBOM is available as the SPDX format, which is basically a big giant JSON file. But it outlines all the dependencies you have, their versions, when they were created, any external references, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's an important aspect of compliance. And so now you can pull that down. It is integrated within the CLI extension. So this is GH SBOM, which integrates with the GitHub CLI. And so you can generate the SBOMs from this as well. So this is the SPDX listing here for yours. And then this is being piped into JQ. So you can trace into that if you want. So good stuff on the compliance side. I think this is definitely important. I know a lot of people will roll their eyes like, who cares? I don't care, but it is important. And especially with, increasing scrutiny around software, supply chain attacks, etc. We got to make sure we get our software bill of materials in order. So this is something that's now available on the GitHub side.
I'm pretty sure one of our security people wrote a script to do this by hand a couple of weeks ago.
Now it's just a button. Sorry, security folks.
Even better, it's a CLI option.
I know. Just the worst, eh? Your timing could never be more perfect. Anyways, that's all the news we have for this edition of Deploy on Friday. Thanks for joining us. A little bit of a shorter one. We're trying to make them more condensed now because obviously everyone's not got all the time in the world. But thanks. We really appreciate for you joining us. On behalf of Jim and myself, we really do appreciate your time. Please make sure to like and subscribe to this video if you have the chance. If you happen to stop by and catch this video, let other folks know about it. And we'll see you next week on the next edition of Deploy on Friday. Take care.